rolling on the final whip speech on February 6, 2018 here at UCLA, where the sunshine is not shining.
59 degrees, eat your heart out.
So today we are proposed, today I want to ask a question. What is the point of welfare? And I would argue that the point of welfare ultimately is to break the cycle of poverty and to bring people from the fringes of society back into it. And today government proposes this idea that, government proposes the idea of removing cash payments and replacing it with a full, full means-tested welfare system. And I'm here to tell you why the government side is just only keeps the people they're trying to help on a lifeline and doesn't actually help them bring them back into break the cycle of poverty and bring them back into society. And I want to tell you, and I want to sum up this debate in two crystallizing questions. One of them is: does the government have can the government choose what is best for the individual and the family based on what they need? And two, do vouchers actually provide more efficiency than cash? And so for the first point, choice. My partner really brought this up, and different families have different needs. And for a lot of the debate, government has sort of been throwing around this idea that people, when they get cash, they're going to squander. They're going to buy drugs, they're going to buy alcohol, and then that's bad. And I'm not going to disagree with that. But you know what money can also be used to buy? Money can use to pay for your internet, pay for your cell phone plans. And I don't think government's plan really provides a way to pay for these necessities and these mandatory services, because the fact is you can't operate in the 21st century without technology and services. And so and so government's plan is just the idea is just that the way we tackle poverty is just give everyone food and that's it. And my partner really brought it, and I'm going to counter this with what my partner brought up in our world, which is the idea of saving. So food is nice because now we have something to eat, and we're not disagreeing that food is not important. However, ultimately, what keeps a family poor is the fact they have no money, and you can't have money if you don't get money. And the thing is, by giving people more food vouchers, you're not really providing a mechanism for them to actually establish wealth and establish a lifestyle that allows them to break the cycle. But all what you're doing is you're just giving them vouchers which can only be used for what they are specifically for. And the fact is, these vouchers can simply not accommodate for the full complement of necessities and needs that a individual might need to, that they feel is best for them to break out of their situation.
Okay, so first of all, government didn't list out every basic need and good in the world, but we say that government covers these, and there's also a small cash stipend for any emergencies. And secondly, how can someone on welfare living day-to-day trying to survive be saving or investing this money? Then they wouldn't need to be on welfare. So I'm going to counter this by, if government's plan of providing basic needs and services actually worked, we wouldn't be having this debate, because we'd be living in a magical fantasy world where everyone would have every single need they have covered. And the fact is, it's about basic needs. It's about basic needs and services. The fact is, the government's not going to pay for your cell phone plan. That's not what this debate's about. It's about about stuff that the thing is, it's just simply impossible to cover every single necessity that is mandatory to not just to live in today's society. And the thing is, vouchers are simply just you simply cannot accommodate for that. And on to my second crystallizing question. Which do vouchers provide more efficiency than cash? And so back half of government brought this idea that government, is wholesale, and then by having vouchers, it somehow makes everything more efficient because government can buy everything wholesale. And I think
they sort of fail to fully address what front half of the opposition brought up, which is the fact that, first of all, these vouchers are not going to necessarily be used in the way that they were designed to. The thing is, like, this sort of goes all into my, backs up my partner's point that needs vary. The fact is, you know, if people are ultimately going to try to get whatever they feel is necessary and through what means is possible. And it's the best way for government to support them is by giving them the easiest way for them to accomplish what they need, and that is cash. And if the thing is, if you give someone food vouchers, but they don't need that, if they need something else, if they feel something else is more important, they are going to sell those food vouchers, which Front Half has already talked about, and government has simply not addressed the fact that people want what they want, and just not giving them what they want is not exactly going to solve the problem. If I really feel like I need this, if I really feel like I need this service, I will do whatever it takes to get that. And if that means selling my food vouchers for 2 cents on the dollar, I will do that. And so the thing is, ultimately, it's about ultimately, government cannot decide what is best for the family and individuals. Cash provides the best mechanism for families and individuals to decide to get what they need. And the thing is, poverty isn't just one big blanket of things where, you're poor because of this reason. Everyone is poor, or everyone has a struggle for different reasons. And there's no universal solution for everything. And the only universal mechanism the only universal thing that all people on poverty and welfare struggle with is the lack of money. And cash is money. And so by giving them cash, you give them money, and you give them the best mechanism for breaking out of their cycle of poverty. And that is why vouchers and just providing means-based welfare is just simply inefficient, because you're only targeting specific needs and you're not targeting the big picture. The big picture is people need what they need, and the only way for them to get that is through cash. And so today, I'm here to urge you to vote for opposition, because cash is the only way for people to break out of not having enough cash.
Thank you very much. And I invite you all to shake hands and step outside.
One thing I need to do before
do you want your deliberation tape? You want your deliberation tape, or you're after the...
Yeah, if you want to tape it, you can...
Yeah, we can hear what you were thinking.
Cash is money.
Cash is money. Why didn't they say cash is king at the end?
Oh, I would have thought. That was my original little quote. I didn't want to take it far.
Oh
I don't know that.
Okay, wait, this is CG. This is C. Let's wait for Josh. Or do you agree with us?
Okay, let's think about it.
Yeah, I wasn't actually thinking of rankings throughout the debate. I was just like writing down stuff.
Yeah,
Hey guys, can you quiet down just a little bit?
Okay.
So we're looking over the notes and doing rankings. So look over your notes, and the deliberation is being taped too.
Oh, okay.
That's like, yeah.
I'm torn between 1 and 2.
So we'll get our own rankings first.
Yep.
Chair, why don't you
Chairs are not meant for big men like you.
These ones are. Let's see.
This is literally the only time, because I'm thinking about flying in the middle sea. This is probably the only time when it's better than sitting on the side.
Yeah, no. Alright, well.
I thought it was a kind of bad debate overall.
I thought it was pretty good.
Front,
No.
PM did not do a good job setting it up, and they kind of abused the res, and they called them out on it. They didn't have a good response.
No, I bought the LO's like abuse of the PMs.
Yeah, that's. Yeah. I could, as soon as he said
Okay.
it.
I'm ready with my ranking.
I'm not ready with mine yet.
Okay. There are a couple of points that could have been rebutted better, I think.
So, let me think. So, 3. Worst.
What's the other one?
I have a preliminary.
Hold on. Give me 1 second. I just remembered something. Okay, are you ready, Renrik?
Do you have a preliminary at least?
Wow. That's
What?
really different. What's yours?
Actually, yeah, I'm very unsure about this. I'm gonna listen to you guys first.
Where are you at? What's yours?
Okay, so I gave the first place to opening opposition.
Can you write it just so I can see it?
All right.
It helps me visualize it.
Oh yeah, I can do it this way. And then I gave second place to opening government.
Mhm.
And then I gave third place to closing opposition. And then I gave the fourth to closing government.
Okay, so far all I'm seeing is we definitely all agree that the opening opposition
It deserves
did
a higher.
a dude of 1 or 2, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
You
What's
guys,
yours? Okay.
you guys thought
Actually-
closing gov
1, 2.
Well, okay.
was the worst.
Okay, so I gave the first place to opening opposition because I thought that there were some points that were not as well rebutted by the opening government, and that was, or government in general, and that was the dignity point. They could have brought up that there are measures that can be taken to, well, but I mean, I don't know. No, hold on.
Wait, can we talk about the? I think we agree on the 1 and 4. I just changed my rankings right now. Josh.
I put 4 as closing off.
Closing
Okay.
up? Okay, let's talk about the 4 first because I feel like that's the easiest to talk about.
All right, so I mean, right off the bat with Armand and
Mm-hmm.
I forgot his name.
Dylan.
Dylan. I like the Armand didn't really bring much good new material. He even said he just literally reiterated front half's points. So right there, like his arguments are kind of weak for me. And like his response to, like I think the POI did a really good job at taking down his one point. It was that like he said the POI was saying like means tested means that it actually works. And he doesn't really respond, he just kind of restates his point.
Mm-hmm.
So his one point of new material kind of got taken down. And then within the whip speech with Dylan, like, just comparative between the whips, he just did a worse job. He didn't do a terrible job, but I like the way Renali framed it a lot better than him.
She did have 3 crystallization questions.
Mhm.
Dylan had 2.
I was thinking more in terms of actual positive matter. All right, so the closing government's only
Mhm.
positive matter throughout this debate is that quantity-based government negotiations are better because
Mhm.
they have greater returns on scale. Government's buying bulk, blah blah blah.
Well,
And the-
government also gets stuff at wholesale prices, which if you spend money as an individual, you would never be able to get that.
Right. Basically, the government is more efficient because it buys a lot and it can negotiate directly at wholesale prices,
Mhm.
right? And then
Closing off provided the point of how people's needs vary, and there's no way that the
Right,
government could
and this is really
always
where I actually have
account.
to give Dylan some credit because
Yeah,
Dylan
I thought
gave
that was
a-
really good.
I like that one too.
Dylan gave a great example of internet and cell phone bills, and I think, okay, I'm not sure
Wait,
like
you
how
liked-
much of my own.
Wait, you liked that one?
Yeah, I liked
It
it
makes
because
sense.
Really?
because
Yeah.
in the real world, right, which is what Ronaldo was stating, in the real world, this isn't a perfect world. And Dylan actually like answers POI really well in that in a perfect world, vouchers would work perfectly well, and they would be able to answer every single consumer need that we have. However, in the real world, vouchers don't ever work that well. Section 8 housing and food stamps only combine to make a sub portion of what a person's total needs are. And the main thing is that they need cash in order to pay internet bills and to pay cell phone bills in order to pay electricity. Well, some of that might be able to be answered by vouchers. Not all of it is. And Dylan, I feel like he said that well. Or he said that well enough
I
for me
guess
to
if I
like.
take the principle of his argument, I can agree because I don't
he
think
was
like
talking
internet
about
and like iPhones
human
are like
nature.
are a necessity.
And he said the point, I'm not sure if you guys got it, that you do need internet and a cell phone to survive in the model.
See, I would have,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
see, I agree with his principle, but I don't like the example. I think it would have been better for him to say like it's hard to get a job when you don't have a suit, or if you can't shave.
Right, I
You
wish
know?
someone was going to say that.
Nobody did world comparison. Really.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and
that
no one-
would have been.
And no one did that. It was a sloppy debate on front and back half, but like the front was
Okay,
just
but if we compare the two
Yeah.
issues, let's just look at in CEO's argument just like wins in terms of actual argumentation, in terms of like the example provided. The quantity-based returns argument doesn't matter as if people are actually just going to trade in their vouchers, which is a point that
Yeah,
was
I
brought
like
up
that
and
too.
never actually refuted by the government.
All right, I could switch my vote then to putting the.
Though I'm not, though,
Closing
okay,
off
let's just
above-
like see the
closing above.
verifiability of like CG's argument. Like, Yana, what do you think?
I kind of still stand by my ranking.
You put CG above.
Well, I put CO above CG.
Right. Okay. So that's what we had just said. I think we all
Okay.
just
Right.
agreed on that. So we definitely put CO above CG. So let's talk about front half. Well, I don't think we really need to do it that much. The
Okay,
front half was
well,
I thought opening
PM was a
government
miss.
did a good job of setting
Really?
up the. Yeah, I thought so.
okay,
He
yeah,
kind of-
because this is where we're gonna have a conflict. I put
Yeah.
a 3 on the PM.
Yeah, I did not. I put a 3 on PM too.
Yeah, so
They abused the resolution. There was no. They didn't tag any of their points. I got lost halfway through his speech.
okay, just ignoring like actual like speech ability. Is that a word?
Well, no, tagging is cool, but tagging like if I can't understand what he's saying, like
I got
like,
it.
the-
I got it.
Okay, Yana, what's your argument in terms of this?
Well, I thought Nikhil did a good job as kind of just setting everything up, where he explained what he considers to be, right, those who are on welfare, right, poorest members of the society, and yada, yada, yada. Then he outlined what the basic goods would be, right? He talked about healthcare, he talked about, right, housing and food insecurity and all of that type of thing, and he sort of touched on where the money would be coming from, and which I guess he could have been a little more obvious, but I penalize OG by giving the first place to OO.
Okay.
Like, to me, that's really the argument, but to me, OG does not
So-
get worse ranking than CO.
Okay, so at least so are we in agreement that opening opposition did better than opening government?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Okay.
think opening opposition got the win for sure.
I think so.
I think they did too.
Okay.
So we can agree with that.
Yeah, the only
But I
conflict I
think
have
OG
is with
still
the 2-3
places
split.
above CO.
Maybe. Okay.
That was my initial,
let's
but
just
like-
look at it. Nikhil's argument, the model was a bit unclear in terms of actual like goods and services provided, and he, to be fair, did actually like really fuck up the resolution by saying that
Yeah,
you could have
like,
vouchers
seriously.
and you could still have
But
cash.
then OO
because-
attacked the model, and I thought that was good.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
right. That's what we give them one.
Yeah, that's why we get
yeah,
that
yeah,
one.
yeah. But I still think when you compare OG with CO,
Well, like think about like the way they framed the debate was inherently abusive. Like for me, that's like immediate.
That's punishing, but okay, let's just
but also they
okay,
had a
ignore
lot of
the
good
fact.
positive
Let's just
matter.
pretend that they didn't have a model whatsoever.
okay.
Wow.
Okay. Okay.
Four.
That's fine.
Okay, let's just like look at the argumentation, right? So maximize utility. So theft and government corruption did actually carry throughout the round. Those arguments
All of their
did carry
points
throughout
did.
the round.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did.
The racial and discrimination stuff was immediately destroyed by
Yes, it
OO.
was. I agree.
And then let's just look at Yester's stuff, which was a bit
Her
more
rebuttal was
clear.
excellent.
I
think.
did like Esther's. That's
And she
If there
really
was a saving
tackled
grace,
corruption, she
yeah.
tackled theft.
she would be the saving grace of opening Gov.
I agree.
But then, okay, let's just like look at where the argument ends up, because this was like Esther's like ending points, right? It helps accountability on the side of government, helps accountability on the side of people. Is that viable?
The accountability, yeah, I mean,
Because Harsh, okay, well then Harsh.
I think
was
Harsh
the
did a
first
good
step.
job too.
Harsh did a great job in terms.
I think he did. I think his rebuttal was better than Esther's. Comparatively, I think his rebuttal was better.
Yeah, but just think about does
She
Yester's
did spend a lot of time on it.
points actually carry through after
They
the
didn't. Yeah, I guess they
first
didn't
fellow
carry
speaker?
through. Like I think Harsh took down the accountability pretty
Well,
well.
here's an argument that Esther brought up that was not rebutted by the opposition at all,
Okay.
and that was some people are unable to spend money, and OO and CO totally went with it. They said, yes, some people can't spend money.
What? Okay,
Yeah.
explain the argument to me because I didn't get it.
Okay, so Esther is talking about how we need government assistance and for the government to say this is for housing, this is for food, this is for healthcare, because not all people are capable of making their own choices. So
Oh,
she
this
talks
was about the
not
addiction
all
and
people
habits being
have-
scammed.
Yeah, where not all
abusive
people
situations.
have sort of like the educational level to understand how they need to budget and etc. And that point went unrefuted throughout the debate. So
Okay.
to me, that's a pretty good.
Yeah, okay, so Esther basically saves it then. So it's 2, 1, 4, 3?
Yeah. Do you agree?
2, 1, 4, 3.
And then 2 for opening gov. Because now I feel a bit more comfortable also giving the 4 to CG. Because Esther's point about government accountability is
And
actually
they
the
go
main
near
point.
Who wants to give the feedback?
Oh, I guess we all will.
Yeah.
So we'll mainly talk about the 2-3 split and then the 1 and the 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Should we get them?
So we're all done.
Yeah.
And turn this some way.
Yeah, I guess. Just to see all their disappointments.
See CGs and CS, the point faces, disappointed faces.
That's okay.
I don't like giving feedback.
I wish I had that. I was scared. It's like the first time I was like, that was the first time I was
I know, but I probably could have board me.
For what?
6 students actually.
Cool.
You got
Is there
a
food?
Huh?
Is there food?
No, it's a board meeting.
Oh, okay.
It's not going to be a sick meeting.
kill.
I wish it was. I wish I could say that.
You can. That makes it fun.
Suddenly we realized my email
No, they're too serious.
Are we missing one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did Nikhil leave?
Esther, do you want to know?
I sent you a message.
So just below this.
Madam Prime Minister.
Oh, okay. So I guess we'll do the ranking. So
Is that recording? Is this recording?
it is, and it
Yeah, it
recorded
is.
our deliberations. So I'm
I don't know
assuming
if
you'll
it's
be able
gonna
to
go on or
access
not.
that. It's okay.
weird.
I don't-
No, it's not actually looking at anyone.
Yeah.
Except for Harsh.
I just don't want.
Staring into your soul.
So we gave, after
You're in
long
the middle of the
deliberation,
deal.
we think, we gave the first place to opening a position. We gave the second place to opening government. We gave the third place to closing opposition, and we gave the fourth place to closing government. And okay, let's start with 1-2 split. So we all thought that the model was not too clear, and we thought the OO did a great job at attacking the model, and that is why we think that the split was really, which is why it was so easy to say OO gets the first place. We think that you guys tackled that issue very well. And a lot of points were great, yeah, I guess, yeah.
So at the point where the government said that they'll bite the harm for stigma, and then harsh at the point where you actually impacted out the problems of the shame and poverty, and like the actual stigma that comes with poverty, this was also brought up in Elo's point, and at the point where like you did a pretty decent job on rebuttal, and like you talked about how the government won't be held accountable because of like the welfare industrial complex, and how the government itself controls like the actual like measures of welfare. Like we all bought those points, and we thought that they were like great takedowns of the racial and discrimination points that were brought up in the PM speech. And in terms of, let's see, just like let's.
And then your dignity point, it really didn't go as refuted as it could have been.
Right.
We think, where the government side just basically said, yeah, we're just going to bite that harm. And so that really carried through. And then another thing for Harsh, you spent about 3-4 minutes on rebuttal.
Yeah. Before it was too long, yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit. It was great though. It was really good rebuttal, and we all liked it. But your point about racial minorities and how it affects them specifically, that was very good, and would have loved to hear more about it.
And then
Number 2.
onto the 2-3 split, which we actually had a bit of trouble with. Okay, so like in terms of the, wait, Josh, you want to go?
No.
Okay, so in terms of the CO argument, right? Like the main argument that comes from the CO is that cash is a better form of actually like providing welfare, as in households themselves can adjust to the needs that they need, and like cash can provide for those needs. And we bought that argument, especially when Dylan, especially when Dylan brought up the example of paying for internet and cell phone bills, which we thought was a great idea because, like, in the modern day, in the modern status quo, Section 8 housing, food stamps, and all these other vouchers don't actually provide for these modern needs that people need. And that, like, if you actually want to have a job and you actually want to have a way to survive in this world and assimilate into the society, of course you need cash to pay for that kind of stuff that governments would be considered to be extraneous, or like just generally won't provide vouchers for. Now, but the reason why we didn't give you the 2 over the opening government is because we thought that the opening government's arguments actually carried through the round. All right, let's just like take a look at the arguments that Nikhil brought up about theft, which carried very well through the round, and that cash is more likely to be stolen. This was like one of the main arguments throughout the debate as to why vouchers would be preferred over cash. Everyone in government chose that. Government corruption, which I believe that Esther really actually like detailed out when she was talking about government accountability and how in illiberal democracies, or like in like third world countries, right, governments can get away with corruption on a much wider scale, and vouchers can actually fix for that, because vouchers are like actual staple form of goods and services that are less susceptible to corruption. And while like all the issues didn't carry out through the round, we feel that the Prime Minister, even with a shitty model, had enough solid arguments that carried throughout the round to give them the 2 over the 3 for CO.
So I actually don't think that the model was that shitty. I thought that you did outline very well what it meant to be poor, right? Who were we talking about? Who were the people who were in welfare? And then you outlined really well what were the basic goods that we were talking about, right? We were talking about healthcare and food and housing and all of that. So I thought that was pretty clear, but then not as clear when you guys went for the middle ground and said, well, we'll also do a little cash stipend to start a business and whatnot. So, but then what placed you in the 2 over 3 for me was your point that was really unrefuted as well, about saying that some people can't spend money. And Esther, you brought it up, saying that not all people have the education, right, economics and what else, to know how to spend money. And opening opposition, closing opposition kind of just bought it. And I think when you guys with closing opposition, it was very clear that Dylan was talking about the human nature, where if the person needs something, whether it's internet or a birthday party for their son or whatever it is, they would find the means to sell the vouchers or not to spend it. But then if you guys talked more about how maybe with the cash that you'll give them, you'll also provide some free classes as to how best spend your money. I think that would have been probably more effective and could have placed you higher, in my view. And then 3-4 split. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so for me, the 3-4 split really came down to the whip speeches. I really enjoyed listening to the way the arguments specifically Dylan presented were, I felt, a lot more impactful to the debate. As per Renali's talking about wondering who, her taglines, who is someone who needs welfare versus can the government choose what's best. I just feel like his arguments outweighed yours. And on the example of the internet and iPhones, I personally didn't really buy that because I felt like that was a little too down the line. I would have preferred you say maybe get a shave or a suit because people won't hire you because you look a certain way. That's kind of a preliminary part to that. But I bought the principle that you talked about, and that's the reason I credited you.
Armand, I just wanted to mention something really quickly. So you came out and you said, I can't really do rebuttal because the person in front of me didn't bring up enough points, which, I think Kyle did, we all agreed that Kyle did bring up a good point where government can get sort of better rates. But if you think that the person in front of you didn't bring up that much stuff, don't reiterate what's been reiterated. You kind of wasted time on repeating the arguments that were brought up. So if you just went, that person didn't bring up anything, so I'm just going to go directly into my positive matter, that would have probably sounded a lot better.
Okay, so just a couple notes on Renali's speech. Renali actually did a good job in terms of whip speech, in terms of crystallizing the round. The problem is that the government side didn't bring a unique enough argument, at least that we felt, unique enough argument with the whole government negotiation thing to actually go over closing opposition. The reason why is mostly because of Esther's rebuttal. Because Esther brings up the rebuttal that, first of all, this makes up a majority of Renali's speech, and that Esther brings up the idea of accountability and that some people just can't be held accountable to themselves, mostly because of spousal abuse, because of drug addiction, because of the fact that they're getting scammed, or whatever the multitude of reasons are for the very poor. And this first of all, your first crystallization question, where you said okay, government will bite the horns of limiting freedom of choice if these people get what they need. Which, while I think that's a great extension, it's a very non-unique extension that was brought up. Okay, on to the second crystallizing question.
Oh, but then for Kyle, I'm sorry to jump in.
Right.
You could have definitely used the full 7 minutes. Would have loved to hear more. And then you were talking closer to the end, we were talking about dignity, and you said the front half rebutted that very, very well. So just kind of see their points.
Right.
Just talk about that and say, I don't know, and we addressed that argument better than the front half or anybody. So don't send us back to your front half. Yeah. Kind of just take that point and run with it.
I have a question. When it comes to whip speeches, are you not supposed to interact with the top half that much? If it's kind of topics that are constantly brought up about.
I heard people do different tactics, and I'm no expert on whip speeches at all. But I know that there's some people who would never bring up front half whatsoever.
I get that, but the topic, it's similar themes, and I just didn't know where to draw the line on how much I mentioned.
Okay, so as a whip speaker, and I'm no expert on this either. The point is that you're supposed to bring up unique extension and say why your team wins around, right?
Yeah.
At the point where government doesn't have that much unique extension in terms of greater returns on scale from government or what government negotiations, whatever the point is, then at that point you're supposed to bring up unique extensions of the prime minister's matter, but those unique extensions weren't there. So at that point, I feel that if you had just summarized the debate that's going on in the first 3 minutes, and then spend 4 minutes summarizing